At Zhongshin Number 3 Middle School, the second mock exam turns Senior Class 1 into Chin Leon's personal victory lap. She scores 732 points, tops the entire school, and leaves her classmates wondering how she cleared questions difficult enough for the real college entrance exam. Everyone already expects her to become the district's top scorer. So the teacher praises Chin while handing back her paper, and she accepts the attention with a calm thank you. A few desks away, however, Yang Lin can barely share the moment because the headaches and ringing in his ears have returned, striking so often lately that he has no clue what is happening to him. The teacher makes his miserable day public by announcing his 250-point total, dead last in the advanced class, and the room immediately tears into the former top student, joking that he must have answered with his rear and would rank last even among Class 19's worst students. Chin Leon approaches with genuine concern, but before Yang can respond, the teacher says the academic office reviewed his consistently poor results and has already decided to transfer him into Class 19. Yang jolts over the decision, only to be ordered to skip evening study, pack his bag, and report there immediately while the class laughs behind him. To him, this is basically the school deleting his character slot. Class 19 is where students with no hope of passing the entrance exam are dumped and left to fend for themselves, a room infamous for fighting and even smoking during lessons. All this punishment over one mock exam feels wildly excessive. Yet Yang understands the real reason as he walks out. He once offended Lin Xiaoguang, whose father is Zhongshan City's mayor and supervises the teacher's husband. Protecting that connection matters more than fairness, so the teacher silently offers Yang an apology for sacrificing him to her family's future, then instantly changes her whole energy to announce Lin Xiaoguang's 701 points as in second place ranking across the school. She invites everyone to applaud their class monitor, and Lin rises like a smug champion accepting tribute while she tells the others to follow his example. He then corners the departing Yang with fake concern, asking why the supposedly fearless former genius is crying and pointing out the blood where Yang has bitten through his lip. Yang orders him aside and refuses to let the mayor's son meddle any further, but Lin Xiaoguang insists that as class monitor, he owes the departing failure a few final words of wisdom. His advice is pure venom. Yang supposedly stopped studying after his parents died, but even if they were alive, a nobody born at the bottom could never compare with the mayor's privileged only son. Lin adds that Yang has no right to compete with him for Qin Lian, ordering the trash to recognize his place, avoid her forever, and keep his tail tucked between his legs. He finishes by patting Yang's shoulder and loudly encouraging him not to give up in Class 19, turning the cruelty into a public joke. Yang stands shaking after Lin walks away. Then rage finally overrides the pain and sends him charging with a threat that Lin is courting death, only for the dizziness to drain nearly all the strength from his swing, leaving him barely able to reach his target. Lin catches the weak attack one-handed and mocks Yang for getting angry over a few harmless comments, before driving him down with a brutal counter and sneering that he cannot even summon enough power to fight. With Yang curled on the floor, Lin tells the watching students that Yang struck first and demands they testify, then labels the beating legitimate self-defense as he stamps down again. Qin Leon urgently begs the teacher to make Lin stop, but the woman knows he has gone too far and still refuses to risk angering him or jeopardizing her husband's job by intervening quickly. She decides to stroll over as slowly as possible, deliberately giving the young lord time for several more hits, while Yang's skull throbs so violently that his thoughts dissolve into chaos and feel ready to burst. Then, inside that collapsing awareness, someone calls the unfamiliar name Chu Tianming, repeatedly demanding that Chu wake up as Yang seems to fall through a strange glowing void. The voice triggers a sudden recognition. Another identity declares itself. Chu Tianming, a cultivator who fought heaven and earth, reached the pinnacle of cultivation and ultimately faced the immortal tribulation. At his weakest moment during that ascension, countless enemies surrounded him and turned the tribulation into an ambush. So when his body died and his Tao vanished, he used a secret technique to preserve his true spirit and force a reincarnation. His memories were sealed with it, designed to open gradually as the new body matured. And now the answer lands with perfect clarity. The reborn Chu Tianming has been living as Yang Lin. Consciousness snaps fully into place just as Lin Xiaoguang's next kick drops toward him. But Yang catches the leg, rises without effort, and hoists the mayor's pampered son upside down like an especially loud piece of laundry. Teacher Zheng finally rushes forward, not to question the beating, naturally, but to order Yang to release Lin immediately. Yang coolly praises her talent for choosing sides and says having a homeroom teacher like her is genuinely embarrassing. And that calm, cutting stare frightens Zheng because the boy before her suddenly feels like a completely different person. Even so, he agrees to listen and promises to let Lin go right away, by dropping him headfirst onto the classroom floor with one hard thud. As Lin crawls to teacher Zheng for protection, she warns Yang that his transfer does not end the matter and orders him to Class 19, which he accepts on one condition: she must make a wager with him. If Yang ranks first in the entire school on the next mock exam, Zheng will resign. If he fails, he will voluntarily drop out. The students think the stakes are insane, since a boy who has fallen this far supposedly has zero chance of rebuilding his grades so quickly, while Lin and Zheng laugh that the last ranked failure is speaking as if he could climb straight into heaven. They have no idea their target once stood above worlds. Without cultivation, they resemble a frog, judging the moon from a well. And once this body recovers, even ascending again will be nothing. Yang ignores the mockery and asks teacher Zheng one simple question: does she dare accept? Certain his confidence is empty nonsense. She says of course she does, and demands to know what gives him the capital for such arrogance. Sealing a wager that leaves the entire classroom buzzing as the newly awakened cultivator stands alone before them. Yang shoulders his bag and warns teacher Zheng not to regret her choice when the result arrives, while she fires back that he had better not return crying and begging when reality catches him. Qin Leon abandons the room to hurry after Yang, leaving Lin Xiaoguang furious enough to wonder what kind of love potion that dog used to keep her attention. Outside, Yang moves through the departing students with his thoughts far beyond their petty classroom politics, savoring his reincarnation and vowing that in this life he will hold every important thing firmly in his own hands. Chin catches up and brightly suggests they walk home together since they are headed the same way. But his cool silence sends her chasing after him with an exasperated shout about his impossible attitude. Lin, meanwhile, waits beside an expensive sports car with a much uglier plan than another schoolyard taunt, ordering a muscular red-haired driver to run Yang over and kill him in exchange for the car. Because Yang once had a strong academic foundation, Lin refuses to leave even the smallest chance of a comeback and wants him permanently removed. And when the driver nervously asks whether murder is really safe, Lin says his mayor father will make sure the death is recorded as an accident. That promise is enough. The man slams the accelerator and happily announces he will leave the kid half paralyzed, sending the sports car straight toward Yang as he steps across the road. Chin spots the charge and screams a warning, but Yang merely turns, assesses the threat, and lifts two fingers with the composure of someone facing a very noisy insect. Calling the driver a mayfly trying to shake a tree, he releases a surge of blue spiritual force that makes Lin's hired muscle realize he badly misjudged his target, then directs the energy downward in a precise, effortless motion. The red-haired man can only gape as the impossible power catches the vehicle, whipping the car into a violent circular path around Yang instead of letting it strike him. The runaway vehicle completes its orbit and rockets away from Yang, now aimed directly at Lin Xiaoguang, who drops into the road as the driver screams for the young master to dodge. Lin can only shriek for it to stay back before the sports car veers into a spectacular crash that sends both conspirators scrambling amid smoke and twisted metal. Chin rushes to Yang and asks whether he is hurt, but he calmly says he is fine, brushing off the entire assassination attempt as if the driver simply wanted to demonstrate terrible road skills. The joke hides a serious cost. Stopping the car forced Yang to use a secret technique that stimulated this mortal body's maximum potential, leaving him shaky and hollowed out, and the strain proves too much for his current condition as he collapses on the sidewalk with Chin calling his name. By nightfall, he has been taken to a hospital, where a broad-shouldered man waits beside the bed and asks if Yang feels all right now that he is finally awake. Yang says he is fine and addresses the visitor as Uncle Zhu, asking who brought him in, and Xu teases that Yang's little girlfriend handled everything, then left only after worrying herself almost to tears. Yang rejects the label and calls Qin an ordinary classmate, so Uncle Xu promises not to meddle, confirms the medical bills are covered, and heads to his night shift. Xu lives across from Yang with his 3-year-old daughter, and after his wife abandoned them both, he learned exactly how harsh life can get. Yang's own beginning was just as fragile. Abandoned before he was 100 days old, he was adopted by loving foster parents who raised him as their own and gave him every chance to study. Their deaths in a car accident 3 months ago shattered him, explaining why his once excellent grades plunged so suddenly. Now, with old memories and a new crisis stacked together, Yang recognizes that this body remains far too weak and must be strengthened immediately if he intends to change anything. A nurse arrives at bed 8 and says it is time to replace his dressing, asking him to turn around so she can reach the injury. And Yang sits up with an uneasy but cooperative answer as she prepares the tray behind him. The discomfort sharpens into alarm when Yang senses unmistakable killing intent from the supposed nurse, and he throws himself off the bed an instant before her hidden blade punches through the space he occupied. She is mildly impressed that a hospitalized student dodged it all and notes that he is no ordinary kid, while Yang demands her identity and reason for trying to kill him. The assassin says a dying man needs neither answer and raises the curved knife for another strike, forcing Yang to abandon any careful recovery plan and begin cultivation immediately by cleansing his meridians and purifying his marrow under live fire conditions. Immortal magic power followed his soul into this body, because reaching immortality once means reaching it again is mostly a matter of rebuilding. But Earth's low-level plane suppresses that power so heavily that completing the physical tempering alone would normally be difficult. Her relentless attacks solve the resource problem for him. Instead of generating all the force himself, Yang can borrow the pressure of each blow and drive it through his body. He blocks the next lunge at point-blank range, converting its impact into fuel for the cleansing process. And the assassin realizes with disbelief that he stopped her while his eyes were closed. She attacks it again with a high-bladed kick, but Yang keeps pushing past his form of limits as the force tempering begins to work, catching and redirecting the leg before the strike can land. When she twists into yet another attempt, he intercepts her again and leaves her wondering how a wounded student keeps reading every move. then tells her he genuinely owes her thanks as he grips the captured leg and swings. The borrowed momentum sends the assassin crashing hard into the wall, and her confusion over being thanked only makes the humiliation sting worse. Furious that Yang is openly mocking her, she admits he has successfully enraged her. Tears open the restrictive nurse uniform, draws a heavier weapon, and declares that the strange brat's run ends here. Her trump card is a handgun, and she asks whether even Yang's reflexes can outrun a bullet before opening fire. But his newly awakened vision locks onto the shot the instant it leaves the barrel. Golden light flashes through his eyes as he tracks its path and slips aside, leaving the assassin stunned that an unarmed teenager has dodged gunfire at close range. Yang now knows she is no ordinary killer, possibly connected to a gang or the authorities, but still cannot see why anyone would send this level of force against a high school student. She empties more shots across the rooms, snarling that his luck must eventually run out, and Yang crashes through the window under the barrage rather than stay trapped in her firing lane. Falling from the 7th floor, he rejects the idea of random enemies. Someone is clearly trying to silence him and hide a larger secret, so he catches a streetlight pole in one hand before hitting the ground. He slides and swings down its length in controlled stages, narrowing the motive to one brutal possibility. Whoever hired the assassin may also be responsible for his foster parents' deaths. The car accident that destroyed Yang Lin's former life was likely no accident at all, but because forcing the meridian cleansing left his new cultivation base unstable, he chooses escape now and investigation after he recovers. Blue energy cushions his landing as he disappears into the night, while the assassin reports that her cover has been exposed and gets insulted for failing such a supposedly simple assignment. She warns her impatient handler that the target already jumped from the 7th floor and should be dead unless something impossible happened, only to look down and discover that Yang has vanished without a trace. The next school day begins outside Senior Class 19, where students shout, play cards, smoke, and treat the classroom like a clubhouse with absolutely no adult supervision. Yang walks into that chaos with strength, flexibility, reactions, endurance, memory, and vision beyond ordinary limits, the blessing in disguise that confirms his cleansing and marrow purification succeeded. The upgrade comes with a dangerous bug. Immortal power now races wildly through his limbs and bones, threatening to make the mortal body explode unless he learns to suppress it. A tall, broad student interrupts that concern to ask whether Yang has wandered into the wrong room, then recognizes him as the former school champion whose grades suddenly collapsed. Yang confirms that he has just been kicked into Class 19, and the student introduces himself as Manhua, lights a cigarette, and tells the newcomer to claim any open desk. When Yang asks whether teachers assign seats, Yan explains the only Class 19 rule is basically do whatever, sit anywhere, skip everything, and use the low backyard wall when sneaking out. Fewer than 10 students usually remain once lessons start, and subject teachers rarely bother visiting, preferring to dump test papers on the room and leave the abandoned class to self-study. Yang has barely put down his bag when someone calls him into the hallway, and the entire room freezes upon seeing that the visitor is Cheon Leon. The delinquents cannot believe the school's famous top student has come looking for one of their own, with several openly mourning that Yang, not them, is apparently the beast who caught her attention. One lounging student watches the crowd swarm toward the door and recognizes Yang as the boy Lin Xiaoguang wanted taught a lesson. Outside, Chin first checks that Yang is all right, then notices he somehow seems a little taller, which he calmly credits to the meridian cleansing and marrow purification, while privately admitting that the sharp-eyed girl notices everything. She gives him a complete set of her study notes for every subject, hoping they will help with his comeback, then blushes, hurries away, and leaves Yang holding the bag without quite understanding her reaction. He turns back toward his desk, only for a massive older-looking student to plant himself directly in Yang's path while the class gathers to watch. The giant confirms Yang's name with a threat already baked into the question, while Yang looks up and asks who exactly is blocking him. Manhua quietly identifies this bully as Wang Hai, a habitual extortionist who blackmails students throughout the school, and Wang immediately demands that the newcomer bring him $1,000 tomorrow. Failure, he promises, will end with Yang crippled beneath a fist roughly the size of a microwave, but Yang simply tells him to move. Wang pauses, unable to believe the much smaller boy dismissed him, and Yang repeats the order while knocking the bully's dirty hand off his shoulder. Enraged, Wang charges with a punch meant to break Yang's nose, only to meet a stare so focused that the entire attack may as well be arriving through slow mail. Yang tries to dodge lightly and accidentally moves far enough to make Wang smash into the desks, realizing that the cleansing transformed his physique so completely that he still has not calibrated the controls. He uses the fight as a live tutorial, driving a measured knee into Wang while practicing how much force this new body should release, then flips over the furious counterpunch with enough speed to make the class lose track of him. A descending strike drops Wang to one knee, knee, confirming that Yang is slowly adapting even as the bully demands a proper face-to-face fight. Instead, Yang asks who sent him, reasoning that a stranger with no personal grudge would not pick this confrontation unless someone was pulling strings. Wang curses and tries to rise. But Yang drives him flat again and pins the giant with his much smaller frame. The pressure is so heavy that Wang cannot understand how the supposed weakling with a combat rating of 5 is handling him like a toy. And Yang grips his hair, calmly asking one final time for the name of whoever ordered the attack. Wang claims nobody sent him and says he merely spotted an easy extortion target, but privately refuses to betray Lin Xiaoguang, whose retaliation scares him far more than another beating. He has followed the mayor's son long enough to know the power behind that polished school uniform includes some genuinely dangerous people. So Yang apologizes for asking twice and promises there will not be a third request. He drives Wang's face into the floor again, leaving the giant trembling and coughing while the class watches its resident terror get thoroughly factory reset. Yang admits he never actually needed a confession and reaches into Wang's pocket, where the phone displays a message asking whether that bastard Yang Lin has been handled. The sender is exactly who Yang expected, young Master Lin. He walks away as classmates cheer the newcomer who finally flattened their longtime bully, openly savoring the sight of Wang Hai losing after years of relying on size and intimidation. One student asks Yanhua what they should do about someone this fierce, and Yan decides the only correct answer is to follow Yang and watch the next part of the show. The whole room pours after him, leaving Wang spread across the floor while the target waits back in Senior Class 1. During evening self-study, Lin Xiaoguang sits with a bandaged leg and cane, nervously checking the messages Wang has ignored, and grows increasingly certain that something has gone wrong. His phone suddenly blasts an embarrassingly romantic ringtone about boundless horizons, blooming flowers, and green mountains, drawing every eye in the room, so Lin awkwardly claims he forgot to silence it. Then Yang's voice appears directly behind him, dryly complimenting young Master Lin's musical taste, and Lin turns in horror as he recognizes the person who should have been beaten into submission. He demands to know why Yang is back in Class 1 instead of staying in 19, then convinces himself Wang must have landed a beating and sent the resentful loser here to reclaim some dignity. Lin leans into the performance, calling Yang poverty-stained trash who belongs in a garbage dump and should stop dirtying a noble young master's eyes, until Yang catches the pointing wrist and quietly asks whether that is really so. If Lin is too elevated to remember common people, Yang wonders how does he know Wang Hai from the dump so well. Lin pretends the name means nothing and boasts that a top-class monitor, second-ranked student and mayor's only son, cannot be expected to remember every random nobody. So Yang reaches inside his blazer for a practical translation. He produces Wang Hai's phone, calls the saved contact labeled Young Master Lin, and lets Lin's own device answer with the same ridiculous ringtone. Yang repeats a line from the song and asks what kind of rhythm feels most swinging or what singing sounds most joyful, before checking whether the suddenly speechless young master understands now. Class 19 piles in behind him, loudly demanding that Lin take responsibility like a man instead of hiding like a turtle, and the mockery spreads across Class 1 until students are joking about checking his pants for proof. Desperate to escape the humiliation, Lin hurries off to fetch teacher Zheng, who storms in demanding silence during evening self-study, only to stop short when Yan Hua and the others crowd around her, and she notices Yang standing at the center. Lin begs her to teach him another lesson, but Yang decides this is perfect timing to collect a little interest from the teacher who sold him out. A small, precise burst breaks the tip from Lin's cane just as Zheng steps forward, sending her shoe onto the loose piece and pitching the furious teacher helplessly through the air. Zheng lands in the worst possible position between Lin's legs just as his clothes come loose, freezing both of them in speechless horror. And the mayor's son realizes his reputation has been launched straight through the classroom floor. Class 19 immediately roasts the exposed evidence as smaller than a pinky and declares Lin officially proven, just not in the way he wanted. Yang strolls out, dryly admitting he never expected teacher Zheng and Lin to have such an elegant relationship and inviting them to continue without him. Zheng tries to explain while privately panicking that offending the mayor's son this badly may have destroyed her husband's promotion, and Lin swears he will repay Yang double for the night's humiliation. Outside, Yang returns to the urgent cultivation problem. Suppressing the chaotic immortal power requires refining a special pill. Yet every necessary ingredient carries a price far beyond an ordinary student's budget. In his former high-level world, even 100-year-old ginseng counted as bottom-shelf material, but on Earth, basic medicinal herbs cost enough to make his current finances look personally offended. A distant cry for help cuts through that calculation. After cleansing, Yang's senses have expanded sharply enough to detect trouble within roughly 200 meters. He finds a frightened small child cornered in an alley by two knife-wielding men promising food and games. While the child clutches a stuffed bear, cries for Dad, and insists these are exactly the bad people Dad warned about. One bald attacker snarls that crying is annoying and abandons the quieter abduction plan, deciding instead to carve up the child's tender flesh right there. Yang arrives before the knife can fall and catches the man's wrist, then recognizes the victim as Shui Yu, Uncle Shui's little child. He reassures Yu and learns that Uncle Shu took the hungry child for food after his night shift, only for them to become separated. As the bald man rages at being ignored and strains to rip his arm free, the attacker does break Yang's grip, a genuine surprise after the cleansing made him far stronger than ordinary people. The bald man immediately chops his knife downward, jeering that Yang must be deaf or mute for ignoring his warning. But Yang recognizes something more dangerous than street bravado, the cold, practice-killing intent of a man who treats life as worthless. He drives a kick into the killer and realizes this opponent is no common thug, but a fighter stronger than even the disguised hospital assassin. Earth may lack true cultivators, yet its martial traditions clearly produced experts capable of pushing his unfinished body. The bald man fires back with a brutal kick, and Yang calculates that ordinary strength will not end this quickly enough. He catches the incoming leg and turns the attack aside, slamming the man down while worrying that any prolonged exchange could drag the terrified Yu into their crossfire. Yang calmly asks how many people the thug has killed, and the bald man's startled face confirms the accusation. Realizing his history has been seen through, the killer decides Yang cannot be allowed to leave the alley alive. He boasts that 32 lives already stain his hands and charges to make Yang the 33rd. With Yu crying behind him, Yang judges that he can neither dodge again nor risk letting the next strike reach the child, as loose leaves whip through the dark alley and offer him a desperate weapon. Yang chooses to release a trace of magic power and subdue the murderer in a single move, though forcing that chaotic energy through his damaged body could make him explode and die before the attacker does. He flicks one leaf forward like a hidden blade, and the fragile greenery tears through the bald man's shoulder with impossible force, stopping him in shock. The bloodied leaf embeds itself in the wall beyond him, proving the casual gesture carried lethal penetrating power. While the thug mistakes the legendary feat of flying flowers and plucked leaves for proof that this weeping schoolboy is a secluded martial grandmaster. Yang privately dismisses that title. The spectacle was merely a crude application of ki condensation forced through raw power. Police sirens suddenly flood the alley, promising an abrupt end to the confrontation before either side can explain what happened. Yang knocks the wounded killer unconscious with one clean kick, deciding the mundane authorities can handle the criminal while he avoids troublesome questions about the leaf buried in the wall. Taking Yu by the hand, he leaves both abductors behind and promises to help find Uncle Shu. They have barely escaped the scene when a violent surge twists through Yang's body, and he doubles over coughing blood while the frightened child calls his name. Using magic power to end the fight safely has set his chi and blood racing chaotically through every channel, leaving him in genuine danger of exploding from within if he cannot regain control. Young's estimates he has only until dawn and needs to refine and swallow the stabilizing pill immediately, yet his complete lack of money makes its heavenly herbs and earthly treasures seem further away than ever. Yu innocently notices how awful he looks, assumes hunger is the problem, and suggests buying food for both of them. The mention of a convenience store suddenly gives Yang an idea, so he accepts Yu's invitation and leads the child toward the shops with renewed purpose. Back at the sealed alley, emergency lights flash while the police secure the crime scene. An officer reports to the arriving Captain Ching that one suspect has already lost consciousness. The imposing plainclothes captain immediately demands the man's identity and learns he is Wang Baolong, a nationally wanted class of criminal who fled to Jiangxin just before the authorities could tighten security. Captain Ching is stunned that an unknown person could casually knock out a fugitive of that caliber. The officers confirm their protected target is safe and begin the retrieval operation, but report that no conventional weapon was recovered. Ching presses them to explain what they did find, and a forensic investigator points to the leaf lodged in a utility pole, judging from its angle that it caused Wang Baolong's piercing shoulder wound. Captain Ching makes the investigator repeat that the murder weapon was nothing more than an ordinary leaf, then wonders what kind of hidden expert could produce such an impossible result. He orders his team to seize every nearby surveillance recording and identify whoever defeated Wang Baolong before the trail goes cold. Elsewhere, Yang has safely returned Yu to Uncle Shu's home and spreads his convenience store purchases across a kitchen counter. He knows Earth's scarce resources cannot supply many proper pill ingredients at all, and even the few suitable medicinal herbs available commercially cost far beyond anything he can afford tonight. Instead, he has substituted cheap Chinese patent medicines with similar properties and redesigned the ancient formula around their modern contents. Yang pours the makeshift ingredients into an ordinary clay cooking pot, confronting the hardest part of his improvised refinement. He summons his divine soul to control the heat, precisely enough for the mismatched medicinal effects to fuse rather than destroy one another. But the first attempt erupts spectacularly, blasting apart the vessel above his head. Yang ruefully corrects himself. The clay pot exploded, not a true pill furnace, and refining medicine this way demands far finer heat control. Since the ingredients were cheap and plentiful, he sets another pot down and keeps experimenting despite every failure. Explosions repeatedly boom from the kitchen as Yang curses, steadies himself, and starts over yet again. Exhausted, battered, and sweating, he refuses to surrender while dawn and death both creep closer. At last, golden fire rises cleanly from the pot, and Yang realizes the refinement has finally succeeded. There is no time to celebrate. His congested channels are already driving his magic power inside him into increasingly violent surges. He swallows the newly formed pill immediately, drops into meditation, and focuses every remaining breath on digesting it and clearing his blocked internal circuits. Blue spiritual radiance envelops his body as the medicine enters circulation. Then searing pain detonates through him like an inferno. Agony Yang welcomes because it proves the crude pill is taking effect. The treatment succeeds. His internal circuits open, the unstable magic and raging blood settle, and even his physical strength climbs another step. The immediate threat of bodily explosion is suppressed, although Yang knows stronger magic power will eventually overwhelm this temporary solution. He resolves to earn serious money for higher-grade herbs and better pills, finally giving himself enough security to cultivate without constant fear. Only then does the sleepless night catch up with him, and he stumbles from the wrecked kitchen, barely able to keep his eyes open. Yang collapses onto the couch under a blanket and sleeps through the approaching morning, until an insistently vibrating phone drags him back to consciousness. Qin demands to know where he is. The mock exam is about to begin, and she fears he has forgotten his wager with teacher Zheng. Oh, Yang bolts upright because after assassins, abductors, and emergency pill refining, he truly did forget the exam. He races downstairs with his school bag and nearly crashes into Uncle Zhu in the stairwell, brushing past the grateful father while promising to explain last night's rescue only after he has taken the test. Yang refuses a ride, insisting his newly strengthened legs will reach school faster than a car, leaving Uncle Shubo baffled by the student's impossible confidence. Spiritual energy coils around Yang as he launches through the city at superhuman speed. Meanwhile, Class 19 sits in rigid rows as the first exam session begins, with Zheng Hongxin herself serving as invigilator, the one person Yang least wanted waiting for his arrival. She spots him at the doorway and loudly mocks the supposed genius who wagered he would take first place but arrived late. Yang calmly recalls that school rules bar late candidates only after 15 minutes have passed, then announces he will use every remaining second before that cutoff to review and enter precisely when the grace period expires. Zheng laughs until she nearly folds over, claiming no amount of last-minute cramming can save him and telling him to take his bag home. Yang opens Chin's notes and remembers how grief over his adoptive parents, compounded by Lin and Zheng's abuse, once sent his grades plunging. That broken student is gone. Cleansing and pill refinement have sharpened his mind until he can absorb 10 lines at a glance and remember every word. Zheng mocks his rapid page-turning as fake review and vows to perform a handstand and eat excrement if he even reaches the top 10. Yang closes the entire stack with time to spare and announces he has finished studying, reminding teacher Zheng to remember the reckless promise she just made before he takes his seat. Once admitted, he tears through the first paper and lays down his pen exactly 15 minutes later. Zheng sneers that he must have surrendered, only for Yang to tell her he has already completed every question. She dismisses his confidence as empty posing and waits for the results to expose him. The same spectacle repeats in mathematics. 15 minutes of writing, then Yang calmly walks out. English also takes him only 15 minutes before he hands the astonished teacher a completed answer sheet, and every remaining subject ends with the same effortless early exit. Class 19 watches in disbelief, split between calling Yang godlike and suspecting he submitted blank papers. After the last test, Yang slips through the murmuring students with a quiet excuse, only to find Captain Ching and two uniformed officers waiting in the corridor and asking if he is Yang Lin. His classmates instantly assume his fighting finally became a crime, while Wang Hai privately celebrates the apparent disaster. Ching looms over Yang as if the police have come to finish him, then places a heavy hand on the student's shoulder and guides him aside for questioning. Seeing an opportunity to earn Lin Xiaoguang's favor, Wang Hai decides to make the situation much worse. He loudly accuses Yang of bullying classmates, extorting protection money, beating students, and deserving severe punishment. Captain Ching turns such a penetrating stare on the false witness that Wang immediately wonders whether every lie has been exposed, and repeats the accusation back in a measured voice, giving Wang one final chance to understand what he has claimed. Wang mistakes Ching's severity for anger at Yang and gleefully imagines the rewards Lin Xiaoguang will give him for this contribution. He doubles down, calls Yang an absolute bastard, and demands justice for the classmates Yang supposedly victimized. Captain Ching responds with a low chuckle, then throws back his head and laughs openly at the absurd performance. Wang stares in confusion, wondering whether the intimidating officer has somehow lost his mind, while Yang asks Ching directly whether he actually believed the accusation. Ching says surveillance footage led them straight to Yang and proves the opposite. A brave student defeated a wanted fugitive and left without seeking credit. He praises Yang as a rare young hero possessing both the strength and justice modern society desperately needs. More importantly, Wang Baolong carried an official bounty of 500,000 and the officers present Yang with the entire cash reward. While Wang realizes the police came to pay Yang, not arrest him, and that his attempt to steal favor has made him the classroom clown. Yang is delighted. The reward solves his immediate shortage and can fund genuinely potent medicinal herbs for future pills. He politely declines to carry so much cash around and asks for the money to be transferred directly to his bank account. Ching agrees, hands Yang his personal contact information, and invites the young hero to call whenever he needs help. News races back through Class 19, where students proudly announce that their classmate defeated a nationally wanted criminal. They crowd around Yang chanting hero and eagerly demand every detail of the fight. Wang fumes that Yang has already become untouchably popular, leaving Lin Xiaoguang as his only remaining hope of suppression. He retreats toward Senior Class 1 and reports the entire humiliating reversal to Lin, admitting that the officers rewarded Yang instead of taking him away. Lin coldly predicts that Yang's moment of glory will be brief because his scheduled death is approaching. He gives Wang a new task and promises that successful completion may earn the bully entry into Skyfire. Wang's greed ignites because Skyfire is Zhang Xin's largest underground gang, membership in which would let him swagger through society without restraint. He grovels theatrically and promises to cross mountains of blades or seas of fire for young Master Lin. Lin leans close and quietly explains the first steps of his scheme, but Wang recoils when the plan appears to require challenging Yang, whom he knows he cannot defeat. Lin assures him that Wang only needs to invent a pretext and start the confrontation. A man named Bo will handle everything afterward. Intimidated but tempted by Skyfire, Wang bows and agrees to obey, unaware that Qin Lian has watched the secret conversation from inside the nearby classroom. School finally lets out beneath the evening sky, and students disperse across campus. Qin runs after Yang and calls his name before he can leave. Warning that she saw Lin Xiaoguang whispering with Wang Hai and suspects they are plotting against him, she offers to walk Yang home, surprising him with the unexpectedly direct invitation. But a familiar sports car glides past the pair and immediately captures his attention. Recognizing Lin's car, Yang decides this is his chance to discover exactly what his enemy is arranging. He declines Qin's company on the excuse that their homes lie in different directions and abruptly heads after the vehicle. Before Qin can object, a white luxury car stops in front of her, and a stern-suited man steps out. Her father, evidently there to collect her himself. Lin speeds through Jiangxin feeling certain that his personal intervention will finally arrange Yi's death. Yet a fleeting silhouette behind the car makes him wonder whether Yang is somehow chasing him on foot. High above the roadway, Yang balances on a street lamp and admits he nearly allowed Lin to detect the pursuit. The trail ends at Skyfire Entertainment City, a polished high-rise complex concealing the gang's headquarters behind respectable lights. Lin dismisses the pursuing figure as imagination, surely no runner could catch his supercar, and confidently approaches the guarded entrance. A massive host in sunglasses welcomes young Master Lin with extravagant enthusiasm, while ranks of suited gangsters bow in unison as he passes between them on his cane. Lin asks to see their boss immediately, and his escort directs him toward a private room on the 7th floor. Watching from across the street, Yang recalls Skyfire as Jiangxin's largest organized crime syndicate, with prostitution, gambling, and drugs hidden behind its entertainment business. A strict membership system keeps ordinary customers out, and forcing the guarded entrance would alert everyone before Yang learned anything useful. His enhanced hearing catches the distant words 7th floor, giving him another route inside. Yang circles to the building's exterior without approaching the guards, then climbs 7 stories barehanded, his strengthened body gripping the sheer facade with little effort. He slips through an upper window into the softly lit interior, finds Lin nearby, and conceals himself beside the private room to listen unseen. Lin tells the feared boss Zhang that this operation concerns a student from his school named Yang Lin, then hands over Yang's photograph and complete home address. Zhang Lingjun, Zhangshin's underground godfather, recognizes the Binghe community and recalls previously killing 2 people from that neighborhood for the Lin family. Lin reveals those earlier victims were Yang's adoptive parents, murdered on his father's orders, while killing Yang himself is Lin's own idea. The truth hits Yang like fire. The fatal car crash was staged, and the Lin family owes him a blood debt he swears to collect. Lingjun agrees to the new murder, and the 2 murders rise to leave together. But Yang watches through the narrowing doorway and decides neither man will simply walk away after that confession. Before he can strike, a mysterious red-haired woman materializes behind him, rests black-nailed fingers on his shoulder, and asks who he is. The woman is merely a private hostess hired for Lin, and she complains that an unexpected second guest should cost extra. Yang restrains the impulse to attack his departing enemies, deciding hard evidence of their crimes will let him destroy the entire conspiracy properly. He moves faster than the hostess can follow and strikes a precise point on her body, freezing her limbs and perception so completely that she can only tremble and demand an explanation. Yang calls it a small mobility blocking trick and warns her to answer every question if she wants to survive. Terrified by his calm threat, she immediately agrees, but insists she knows nothing when Yang asks where Skyfire keeps proof of its collusion with the Lin family. He extends 2 fingers toward her eye, prompting her to beg for mercy and swear she is only a hostess. Yang sighs that ignorance leaves him no reason to keep questioning her, and she desperately remembers that Boss Zhang's office computer may contain the records he wants. Yang flicks another disabling point beside her neck before she can raise an alarm, robbing her of speech as he slips into Lingjun's office and closes the door behind him. The paralyzed woman remains stranded in the corridor when 2 suited guards approach from the other end, and they brusquely tell her that young Master Lin has gone and her services are no longer needed. Unable to explain the intruder or even form a sound, she can only stare helplessly, while the irritated guards order her to leave immediately. Inside the office, Yang searches Ling Jian's computer and finds the files documenting Skyfire's dealings with the mayor's family. The guards finally notice the hostess's strange silence and exchange uneasy comments about her behavior, then glance through the office doorway and freeze at the sight of an unknown student sitting behind their boss's monitor. Both men draw knives and shout that an intruder has breached the most secure room in the building. They rush from opposite sides, one stabbing while the other drives a knee toward Yang's torso. But he seizes both attackers and hurls them away as if their combined assault carried no weight. Yang lifts the bald guard by the throat and recites Skyfire's record of murder, arson, rape, and pillage, making the choking man demand release precisely because the intruder already knows too much. Yang answers that such knowledge removes every reservation he might have had about striking back, then smashes the guard through a wall with enough force to crater the plaster. The thunderous impact draws gangsters from across the floor, all panicking over what their absent boss will do if the office is damaged. They swarm the unknown schoolboy together, hoping numbers will cripple him before questions matter. While Yang folds his hands and introduces himself with a cold smile as an entirely ordinary high school senior, screams and repeated crashes echo through every stories of Skyfire Entertainment City as that ordinary student dismantles the gang. Standing among dozens of unconscious thugs, Yang calls Captain Ching, offers evidence tying Skyfire to the Lin family, and asks him to collect it later. He then realizes Lin's killers have likely already headed for his home and decides to arrive first and meet them on his own ground. The freed red-haired hostess stares at the fallen gangsters, unable to believe one bare-handed teenager overwhelmed them all. Under the moon, Yang returns to Binghe community, where Yu happily greets him in the courtyard. Yang gives the child the copied evidence and asks Yu to hand it to a police officer when the authorities arrive. Nearby, Wang Hai prowls through the neighborhood using the address Lin supplied, searching for Yang's apartment. He peers around a corner and spots Yang crouching beside Yu, just as Yang gently sends the child farther away to play and out of danger. Yu runs off while Wang finally calls Yang's name from behind, and Yang turns with complete composure, answering the summons as though he had been waiting for this confrontation all night. Yang is almost disappointed to find only Wang Hai standing there, with neither Lin Xiaoguang nor Zhang Lingjie anywhere in sight. Sweating despite his bravado, Wang claims he came specifically to fight because he can no longer stand looking at Yang. Yang cracks his knuckles and decides beating the truth out of him will be faster than conversation. And Wang's screams soon roll across the moonlit neighborhood. Bruised, bleeding, and kneeling, the bully begs Big Brother Yang for mercy and promises never to offend him again. Wang also sobs in confusion because Lin promised to bring reinforcements, yet no rescue appeared before the beating was finished. At last, several white vans surround the courtyard and block every exit, disgorging Xin Xiaoguang and a large force of armed gangsters carrying bats and knives. Wang clings to Lin's leg, wailing that Yang nearly killed him and begging the young master to take revenge. Lin kicks him away for dirtying his expensive Armani pants, then declares Yang finished while Wang scrambles up to boast that his powerful patron guarantees death. Privately, Lin considers Wang another disposable tool. He had the nearby cameras destroyed and plans to frame Yang's murder as a fatal brawl between classmates. On his command, more than 20 gangsters spread into a complete circle around Yang so he cannot escape. Lin calls Yang bottom of society trash and boasts that tonight will teach him the true power of authority and influence. Yang asks whether Lin genuinely believes privilege permits him to do anything he wants, and Lin steps close, jabbing a finger into Yang's chest while proudly confirming exactly that. He whispers that Yang can only wait helplessly to be slaughtered, but Yang traps the insulting hand and quietly repeats, "Power and influence?" One small twist snaps Lin's finger, turning his smug lecture into a shriek of agony. As Lin collapses clutching the broken joint, Yang explains that status means nothing when it stands before absolute strength. Enraged, Lin orders his men to tear Yang apart and offers each killer 100,000 if the student dies. Zhang Lingjian rouses the gangsters with the same promise, and greed finally drives them past their hesitation. They charge, arguing over who gets Yang's arms and legs, mocking him as a half-grown brat courting death. Yang settles into a calm fighting stance and waits for the mob to enter range, while Lin gleefully commands them to sever every limb so he can personally deliver the final blow. Surrounded by blades, Yang remembers the years when Lin bullied his unawakened self and now intends to mutilate him completely. His answer hardens into a decision. Tonight, Lin Xiaoguang must be crippled. Yang plants one foot hard enough to shatter the pavement, releasing a circular shockwave that blasts the entire attacking ring backward through the air. Zhang Lingjian watches his supposedly overwhelming force fall in one instant and cannot understand what kind of strength he has encountered. Lin frantically orders the crime boss to call for reinforcements, and Lingjian remembers Skyfire's last untouched asset: sheer manpower. Back at headquarters, however, telephones ring unanswered among the bodies of the guards Yang already defeated. Lingjian calls repeatedly, snarling for someone, Anyon, to pick up, until the freed red-haired hostess notices the desk phone and approaches it cautiously. She answers from the ruined office and reports that headquarters has been overrun, every available man has fallen, and the attacker claimed to be an ordinary high school senior. Lin keeps lecturing Yang that one fighter cannot defeat institutional authority. But Lingjian repeats the devastating news aloud and begins connecting the unknown student's description to the boy standing before him. The phrase senior year student crystallizes his suspicion, and the underground godfather finally points at Yang in terror, realizing this is the same person who single-handedly destroyed Skyfire's headquarters. Yang asks whether the revelation surprised Boss Zhang, enjoying the moment the crime lord understands his empire has already collapsed. Lingjian drops to the pavement trembling and mutters that everything is over, only for Lin to call him useless trash and sneer that Skyfire was never more than a shabby underground gang. Lin admits Yang won this exchange, but promises their conflict cannot possibly end peacefully. Yang laughs that the young master will never shed a real tear until he sees his own coffin, and Lin again invokes his father, Mayor Lin Jiali, claiming a man who controls all Jiangxin is beyond any poor orphan's reach. Oh, Yang interrupts the boast with a fist planted squarely into Lin's face, comparing the mayor's son to a frog in a while boasting about the sky and daring him to retaliate without hiding behind his father. Lin shields his ruined nose in stunned disbelief. A second punch smashes through the defense and sends more blood across his face. Yang reveals he possesses proof of Mayor Lin's partnership with Skyfire, warning that money, status, and authority will abandon the family once it becomes public. Lin finally sees absolute seriousness in Yang's eyes and panics that his entire family may truly be finished. He drops to hands and knees, pleads that they are classmates, admits he was wrong, and begs Yang to spare every member of the Lin family. Yang catches his wrist and answers that Lin does not understand remorse, only the certainty of his own defeat. One sweeping burst throws Lin, Lingjian, Wang, and the remaining gangsters across the courtyard like scattered debris. Police sirens close in before any of the fallen men can recover. Recognizing Captain Qing's arrival, Yang leaves the cleanup to the authorities and turns toward the long-delayed vengeance for his parents. He bounds away across streetlights and rooftops before the police enter the courtyard, while Qing's tactical team reports that every armed gang member has been brought under control. The captain orders all suspects taken in, yet wonders why a Skyfire force appeared outside Yang Lin's home in the first place. Little Shuiyu runs up and hands Qing the storage drive Yang entrusted to him, convincing the captain that tonight's collision was no coincidence. Examining the device, Qing realizes Yang must have gone directly to the Lin family after securing its devastating evidence. He orders a squad to accompany him there, knowing his department's secret investigation has already proved Mayor Lin far more dangerous than appearances suggest. Meanwhile, night settles over the mayor's sprawling, heavily guarded residence. Inside its extravagant halls, an elderly servant finishes a telephone call and prepares to deliver urgent news. He reports that young Master Xiaoguang was involved in a huge brawl and has been detained at its police station. Jiangxin Mayor Lin Jiali slams both hands down and demands to know exactly what happened to his son. He sends the servant racing to the station with orders to use the family's influence and bring Xiaoguang home immediately. Seething with entitlement, Jiali wonders what reckless fool dared lay a hand on his son anywhere within Jiangxin. A cold voice answers that the mayor permits his heir to torment innocent citizens while forbidding anyone from teaching the bully a lesson. Yang Lin steps through the study doors unannounced, leaving Jiali stunned that a schoolboy bypassed every guard without making a sound. Holding up his adoptive parents' photograph, Yang names Yang Jdashi and Aosume and asks whether the mayor still recognizes them. Jiali flatly denies remembering either person, wearing the practiced indifference of an official accustomed to treating ordinary lives as disposable. Yang repeats the denial in a quiet voice, his restrained fury making the luxurious room feel suddenly airless. The mayor mocks the slum-dwelling youth's poverty and insists a busy man overseeing countless affairs cannot remember two nameless citizens. Yang's restraint fractures as he accuses Jiali of ordering Skyfire to murder them and then daring to pretend they never existed. Jiali falls silent, searching his memory now that Yang has connected the deaths directly to being a community. He cautiously asks whether the couple lived there, and Yang bitterly notes that the powerful mayor has finally begun to remember. Jiali laughs off the accusation, boasting that he secretly killed so many residents that he cannot distinguish one victim from another. He admits wanting the old neighborhood demolished for profitable offices, so when holdouts rejected his meager compensation, Skyfire simply eliminated them. Yang calmly produces a hidden voice recorder, disgusted that a supposedly important official considers human lives worthless enough to confess so freely. Jiali recognizes the trap and realizes the boy entered his home fully prepared to turn every arrogant word into evidence. Yang reveals that proof of the mayor's collusion with Skyfire is already with the police, and this fresh confession will complete the case. For the first time, Jiali looks genuinely shaken that a mere student uncovered secrets protected throughout his administration. Yet he quickly convinces himself the claim must be a bluff, reasoning that killing Yang will erase the only immediate threat. Yang tells the mayor that before the police take him away, one personal debt remains to be collected. He launches himself forward with a raised fist, vowing to beat the murderer badly enough to console his parents' spirits. Jiali stares down the incoming blow without flinching and contemptuously asks whether Yang truly came alone. A pistol suddenly presses against Yang's head as the red-haired assassin emerges behind him and warns that he will not leave alive. While Yang recognizes the woman instantly, the same killer who tried to execute him while disguised as a hospital nurse. keeping his fist poised near Jiali. He curses the mayor for pretending ignorance while his own assassin stands ready beside them. Yang exposes the full connection, accusing Jiali of murdering his parents and then sending this false nurse to silence their surviving son. The mayor gleefully admits that caution demanded Yang's death whether or not the boy knew the truth, and celebrates his voluntary arrival. Lounging safely behind his hired killer, Jiali gives a casual order to finish the job, and she answers without hesitation. The assassin fires at point-blank range, but Yang twists aside before the muzzle flash can touch him. He surges inside her reach so quickly that her extended arm passes uselessly over his shoulder. She realizes with alarm that Yang's speed has increased enormously since their hospital encounter. A brutal rising kick hurls her off the floor, knocking the pistol loose as she finally accepts that he truly became stronger. Spinning helplessly through the study, she admits she cannot follow his movements, much less summon enough force to defend herself. Yang appears behind her before she lands and locks one arm around her upper body, seizing total control of the fight. The assassin can barely comprehend how the wounded patient she once cornered has reached such a terrifying level in mere days. Yang drives her into the floor with enough force to shatter the ornate boards, and she can only call him a monster. Leaving the killer unconscious in the crater, Yang advances on Jiali and mocks his confidence in repeating a failed assassination plan. The mayor retreats across his couch, suddenly offering wealth, status, women, or anything else if Yang will spare an untouchable official. Yang rejects negotiation as golden energy begins coiling around his clenched fist, illuminating the fear on Jiali's face. Raising that blazing arm, he declares that all he wants is vengeance for the parents whose love the mayor stole from him. Jiali breaks into tears and realizes the young man before him is not merely powerful but utterly beyond reason or intimidation. Yang's flaming fist stops a breath from the mayor's nose when a commanding voice orders him to halt. Captain Ching rushes into the study with his weapon raised, asking the furious boy to calm down before revenge becomes murder. Yang catches Ching's gun hand without effort and dryly points out the contradiction of demanding calm while aiming a pistol at him. Embarrassed by professional habit, Ching holsters the weapon and promises that lawful custody will still deliver the punishment Jiali deserves. Clinging to his former authority, the mayor instead orders Ching to arrest Yang for illegally invading his home. Ching's patience snaps, and he asks whether the disgraced politician now intends to instruct the police how to conduct an arrest. Jiali calls him a lowly captain and rages that no subordinate has the right to speak so disrespectfully to Jiangxin's mayor. Ching presents an arrest warrant approved by his superiors and confirms that the department already possesses proof of Jiali's Skyfire conspiracy. The once arrogant mayor drops to his knees as the reality of institutional abandonment finally crushes his remaining defiance. Sobbing that everything is over, he understands that his family's power and future have collapsed together. Yang hands Ching the recorder containing Jiali's personal murder confession and leaves the rest of the case to the police. As he walks away from the ruined study, Ching calls after him with one final message. Yang's work against the criminal official alliance has earned another major commendation, and an unnamed important figure now wants to meet him. A distinguished man enters, identifies Yang from his daughter's frequent stories, and warmly says meeting the young hero surpasses hearing about him. Ching introduces the newcomer as Qin Beili, chairman of the city council and one of Jiangxin's highest-ranking officials. Yang realizes this is Qin Leon's father, though the sudden political attention leaves his expression carefully unreadable. Elsewhere that night, the consequences of the Lin family's collapse reach City Center Hospital. Wang Hong, Xiaoguang's furious mother, bursts into the private room and cries out over her bandaged son. The family butler explains that Xiaoguang's nasal bone suffered catastrophic trauma and, despite reattachment, may impair him for life. Barely recognizable beneath layers of bandages, Xiaoguang begs his mother to avenge him against whoever inflicted the beating. Captain Ching storms down the corridor, demanding which officers allowed Xiaoguang's release before anyone knew Mayor Lin's crimes. Wang Hong confronts Ching and accuses the entire Shin of idleness while her precious son was beaten beyond recognition. Grabbing his coat, she demands the attacker's identity and swears to repay every injury with blood. Ching answers her assault with a sharp slap that drops the domineering woman onto the hospital floor. Wang Hong clutches her cheek and screams that a mere policeman cannot strike the wife of Mayor Lin Jiali. Ching displays the official evidence file, orders her detained for assault, and commands officers to return Xiao Guang for investigation into gang collusion. Policemen drag the struggling woman away while she continues threatening that her powerful husband will destroy everyone involved. From his bed, Xiao Guang repeats that his father is Jiangxin's mayor and insists no lowly officer can touch their family. A breaking news bulletin announces that Lin Jiali has been arrested for corruption, bribery, hiring assassins, and collaborating with Skyfire. The revelation reduces Wang Hong to trembling disbelief as the same officers she abused haul her toward custody. Xiao Guang remembers Yang's warning and finally understands that he is no longer protected heir but a hated criminal facing prison. Unmoved by their collapse, Ching orders his subordinates to take both mother and son away. Morning then arrives over Jiangxin No. 3 Middle School, where another reckoning awaits Yang in the classroom. Students crowd around the newly posted mock exam rankings, and word spreads that the long-awaited results are finally public. Teacher Zheng forces her way through the gathering, desperate to confirm the outcome before anyone can confront her. She scans upward from the very bottom, repeatedly telling herself Yang's name must appear among the failures. After checking hundreds of places without finding him, Zheng's confidence erodes and one impossible possibility begins haunting her. Her gaze finally rises toward the top of the board, where the wager's answer has been waiting all along. Yang Lin ranks first in the entire senior year with 747 points, 14 up Chintishan second place score of 733. Oh, Zheng reels in disbelief that the supposedly hopeless Class 19 student genuinely defeated every elite candidate in school. Yang steps beside her and calmly asks whether she still remembers promising to resign if he claimed first place. Zheng pretends not to understand and tries slipping away to teach class, privately deciding she can simply deny the agreement. Yang catches her wrist and calls her by name, refusing to let Zheng Hongxing escape through convenient amnesia. She invokes respect for teachers and demands release, but Yang says someone as dishonorable as her deserves no such reverence. The principal arrives, dispersing the noisy crowd and demanding that everyone report to class. Zheng immediately accuses Yang of harassing and restraining his teacher, emphasizing that he comes from the school's worst class. She expects professional loyalty to outweigh a student's word, and plans to use the principal's intervention to void their wager entirely. The stern principal turns toward Yang and confirms his identity with an intimidating stare. Mistaking that severity for support, Zheng silently celebrates that the school's highest authority will surely suppress Yang on her behalf. Yang answers without deference that he is indeed the student everyone is discussing. The principal's entire manner transforms into delighted warmth as he says he had been searching everywhere for Yang. He grasps Yang's hand and praises his bravery against a fugitive and his crucial help exposing the city's criminal conspiracy. Watching her supposed ally lavish honor on Yang, Zheng realizes the confrontation has followed a script she never imagined. Zheng edges away and secretly calls Xiao Guang, hoping his father's connections can still rescue her while the principal remains distracted. No one answers, and only then does she realize Lin has not appeared at school all morning. Before Zheng can escape, the principal calls her back in a voice that drains the last color from her face. She forces a cheerful smile and claims she must hurry to class unless he requires something urgent. The principal says he remembers the wager she made with Yang, leaving Zheng shocked that their dispute reached his ears. Since Yang ranked for school-wide, he declares that Zheng should honor her own words and resign voluntarily. She nervously dismisses the promise as a private joke between teacher and student that no reasonable administrator should enforce. Yang folds his arms and answers that he never agreed to treat the wager as comedy. Cornered before the principal and gathered students, Zheng warns Yang not to push his victory too far. Yang reminds Zheng Hongxing that she forced him into Class 19 specifically to help Xiaoguang suppress him, never imagining this reversal. He condemns her for favoring wealthy families, abandoning her own pupils, and displaying none of the responsibility expected from an educator. In front of the silent crowd, Yang concludes that Zheng is unworthy of being called a teacher. She finally screams that she will break the wager openly and challenges a student to do anything about it. The principal answers that if Zheng refuses to leave with dignity, he will personally provide her an immediate exit. He fires Zheng Hongxing on the spot, turning her last defiant expression into stunned horror. A strained chuckle follows as Zheng desperately searches for one final way to reverse the principal's decision. She hints that her campaign against Yang served Xiaoguang and therefore carried the protection of Mayor Lin himself. Zheng calls the principal insignificant and warns that helping Yang will invite retaliation from the entire Lin family. The principal asks whether she missed last night's news. Lin Jiali has already fallen from power. Even if Jiali remained mayor, he says the principal holds final authority inside the school and must uphold justice for its students. Privately, the principal recalls that Chairman Chin Bailey personally requested Yang receive fair treatment, making the correct response even more obvious. Zheng collapses as Lin's absence, the uncensored calls, and the news finally combine into proof that her powerful patrons are finished. Clutching Yang's leg, she begs forgiveness and asks him to plead for mercy, knowing dismissal will make every other school reject her. Yang pulls free and orders her to disappear, offering no rescue from consequences she deliberately created. The encounter recalls a lesson from his previous life, when excessive mercy helped enemies surround and ultimately destroy him. Reborn with that bitter knowledge, Yang accepts that compassion toward a determined enemy becomes cruelty toward oneself. He leaves Zheng trembling on the walkway and tells her that every piece of this ruin came from her own choices. With the wager settled, a quieter afternoon returns to Zhongshan No. 3 Middle School. Near the campus entrance, Qin Leon waits beside a dark SUV and notices Yang approaching. Yang looks upward and silently tells his adoptive parents that the Lin family has been completely destroyed in their name. Though they were not related by blood, he vows to honor the years they raised him, enter the best university, and become untouchably strong. His enhanced memory makes entrance exams trivial. The urgent problem is acquiring better herbs and refining stronger pills for future cultivation. Because each breakthrough will require costlier medicine, Yang knows the police reward cannot sustain him and he must build a steady fortune. Inspiration strikes. Beauty-conscious women spend freely on skincare, so a cultivation-derived cosmetic formula could create the market he needs. He defines 2 steps. Perfect a beauty-enhancing recipe, then find a trustworthy partner capable of production, sales, and commercial expansion. While Yang studies the plan, Leian watches him from nearby and wonders what has absorbed his attention. She calls his name, finally pulling a cat of calculations involving herbs, formulas, and potential profits. Leon runs over with bright congratulations for taking first place across the entire school. Yang thanks her but asks whether she really made a special trip merely to praise his score. Leon gestures toward the waiting vehicle and explains that her father asked Yang to come visit him. Inside the spacious SUV, Yang sits beside Leon and asks Chairman Chin what prompted the unexpected invitation. Bailey says Yang's evidence has sealed Jiali's fate. The mayor's accumulated crimes warrant execution many times over. Satisfied that his parents' murderer cannot escape, Yang asks what punishment awaits Xiao Guang. Bailey answers that the young accomplice will probably receive a suspended death sentence. Yang questions why someone so deeply involved should receive anything short of immediate execution. He recalls that good behavior can convert such a sentence into life imprisonment, then reduce it again to roughly 15 or 20 years. The prospect of Xiao Guang walking free after only a decade or two makes Yang clench his fist in anger. Bailey explains that Xiao Guang personally killed no one. He enabled Jiali's hired murders, but evidentiary and legal limits still protect him. Changing subjects, the chairman says Yang helped uproot Jiali's criminal protection network and may call upon him for one future favor. Yang immediately mentions his planned beauty products business, recognizing that Bailey's connections could accelerate licensing, production, and market access. Amused by the student's opportunism, Bailey promises help as long as the venture obeys every law and regulation. Yang then requests one more favor before discussing business: permission to visit Lin Xiaoguang in custody. Repeated persecution was already unforgivable, but Xiaoguang's role in arranging his parents' savage murder demands a personal reckoning. Bailey agrees to arrange the meeting only after Yang promises not to act impulsively inside the detention center. Soon afterward, Yang finds the battered former heir crouching alone behind the bars of Zhongshan Detention Center. Xiaoguang looks up in shock and asks why the enemy who destroyed his family has come to see him. His fear twists into a grin as he claims a life sentence may shrink to 10 years with sufficiently good behavior. He taunts that Yang will have a wife and children by then, vulnerable loved ones no powerful cultivator can guard every hour. Xiaoguang promises to return for that future family, fantasizing about leaving Yang's son, or better, daughter, maimed before his eyes. The threat strikes Yang's deepest fear, and sudden pain beads cold sweat across his furious face. He staggers and covers his mouth while Xiaoguang grips the bars, unaware that the mockery has triggered something far more dangerous than anger. The spiritual power Yang barely suppressed erupts again under extreme rage, surging violently against his heart as control begins to fail.